All my movie peeps, we got way too much movie news to talk about, so let's just get into it. Some of the stuff we're going to be discussing here today, guys, is a ton of horror movie updates. One of them being David Gordon Green no longer looking to direct the next Exorcist sequel. We got a report of who our possible Supergirl could be, and James Gunn responding, kind of confirming she's already been cast. Along with it looking more and more likely like Pedro Pascal is set to be our Reed Richards, because he's making room so he can film the Fantastic Four. Oh, we're going to be talking about that along with so much more. So timestamps in the description, check them out. I think we're going to have a lot of timestamps down there. And well, leave your opinions down below. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Come on now. And well, let's just dive into it here. So first thing I wanted to kick off today is we got a trailer for a movie I've been highly anticipating. We've known that Radio Silence has been making a Universal monster movie set to involve Dracula that is going to star Melissa Barrera. And since they do great work together with Scream 5 and 6, I was wondering, okay, what would this movie be like? And well, we got the trailer today, Abigail, and count me the heck in for this movie because it looks like so much fun. So essentially, the premise is a bunch of criminals are rounded up together and are tasked with kidnapping a little girl, a ballerina, are told to wait in this mansion and that they'll be granted $50 million the next morning, only to find out this ain't just any regular little girl. This is the daughter of Dracula. And now these criminals are forced to survive a night of terror against this little girl. It looks like so much fun. You also have an amazing cast of people in here. Giancarlo Esposito, Melissa Barrera, Catherine Newton, Dan Stevens. I was even surprised when I saw Angus Cloud, RIP. Overall, it looks like a really fun time. You can also feel like the Ready or Not vibes, because this is Radio Silence, and I absolutely loved Ready or Not. Well, I think they did a great job with the last two Scream movies. Something like this feels much more in their wheelhouse where they're just free to do whatever. It's also a lot less pressure than the Scream franchise to get everything as perfect as possible. So yeah, count me the heck in for this movie, and also just buying 1 million tickets so that Melissa Barrera continues to succeed and Spyglass can go over there and cry in the corner. Definite treasure for me. Let me know what you guys thought about the trailer for Abigail. And you know, kind of jumping off that point for a little bit, because there was something I forgot to talk about in the last side flick that had come up. Monster movies right now, they're going strong. You guys know I told you of a movie I was super excited for. Guillermo del Toro directing a Frankenstein movie for Netflix. It was going to star Andrew Garfield as the monster, Mia Goth as the bride of Frankenstein, and Oscar Isaac as the scientist. Like, all of it sounded so perfect. And then, well, we got the news that Andrew Garfield had to drop out because he's got other projects he's contracted to do, and the Hollywood strike kind of pushed his schedule, so now he's no longer able to do it, and instead, Jacob Elordi will be taking over as the monster. Nothing against Jacob, I actually quite enjoy him as an actor, but oh, the downgrade, man. Andrew Garfield as the monster, essentially Frankenstein, you know, whether you want to say Frankenstein's monster or not. So disappointing. Breaks my heart, man. I thought this was going to be one of those perfect, amazing movies, especially with Guillermo del Toro and knowing how big of a fan he is of monster movies. It just kind of sucks now that Andrew Garfield no longer is going to be playing Frankenstein, man. And freaking Netflix even makes Funko Pops for Guillermo del Toro movies. They made Pinocchio. I'm missing out on an Andrew Garfield Frankenstein pop. I can never forget this. Are you guys as devastated as me that Andrew Garfield is no longer Frankenstein's monster in the Guillermo del Toro movie Frankenstein? And well, speaking of the subject of Netflix horror movies, we recently got an update on what's going on with the Fear Street franchise. If you haven't watched it by now, Netflix a while back released these 3 Fear Street movies that I really enjoyed. And well, it seems like they were a big hit on the platform, and they want to move forward with making another Fear Street movie. Not sure if it's going to be a whole trilogy this time. And now we kind of know what book from the R.L. Stine library they'll be taking inspiration from. According to an article here from What's on Netflix, they're saying here the next Fear Street movie is going to be based off the book The Prom Queen. They have the story here. The story is centered around Lizzie McVeigh, a student at Shady Side High School and one of 5 prom queen nominees. When a bloody and brutal of one of the nominees leads to more killings, Lizzie realizes that the killer is targeting the prom queen candidates and she could be next on the list. So that sounds like it could be a fun time. It's just really cool seeing these R.L. Stine Fear Street books get turned into movies, because like R.L. Stine is the guy we know from Goosebumps. To see him get like R-rated movies now, that's kind of awesome. Do you guys like the sound of the next Fear Street movie? Another giant horror news update that got a lot of people jumping up and down is we got reports that they're continuing the 28 Days Later franchise. Thanks to the Hollywood Reporter, they have it here that Danny Boyle, Alex Garland teaming for sequel to their zombie hit 28 Days Later. And while people were always begging for a continuation of this franchise, hoping that the next movie would have been called 28 Months Later, but given how much time has passed since the last movie, 28 years later seems pretty appropriate, especially if they want Cillian Murphy back. The other interesting part about this announcement is that they're hoping that this will lead into a new trilogy of movies, and Danny Boyle, zombie, 28 weeks later, oh, yes, baby. This should also just get you thinking, if they're continuing the pattern of the way time progresses in each sequel, what's going to happen by the end of this trilogy? Because we know it's starting off with 28 years later, so that means we have to go 28 decades later, and then 28 centuries later. Can you imagine that third film being 2,800 years into the future? And what that could... is there a zombie movie set in the future? I don't think so. If anybody can pull it off, it's going to be Danny Boyle. You have my full support on this. I can't wait to see what happens. How are you guys feeling about the 28 Weeks Later franchise continuing? And well, it just continues to be good news in the horror sphere because we just got an update on the Exorcist franchise. Revealed moments ago, the Hollywood Reporter is saying here that David Gordon Green departing from 2025 Exorcist sequel search underway for new director. As you guys might know by now, last year The Exorcist Believer came out, and to me it was one of the most disappointing horror movies of last year. I just was not a big fan of the direction Blumhouse was headed in with them reviving Exorcist. It was even crazier knowing that they paid $400 million for this franchise and they had already confirmed we would get 3 movies in total. David Gordon Green was looking to do all 3 of them, but reviews talk, fan reaction talks, and it looks like Blumhouse had to make a tough decision and cut off David Gordon Green. Now, the article here doesn't say that he was fired. I'm not going to go ahead and put that out there. If anything, the article says he chose to walk away because he's got other projects to do, which, side note, it says here he's doing a movie called The Nutcrackers and the Righteous Gemstones. We had heard a long time ago David Gordon Green was going to direct an HBO Hellraiser series. What's the update on that, man? I want to know if he's still doing that because I want me some HBO Hellraiser. But besides the point, the Exorcist sequel called Exorcist Deceiver that was going to come out April of 2025 now no longer has a release date, and they're looking for a director. I honestly don't even know who they should get. I even threw it online, and the most common response was, nobody. Just bury it, burn it, stop this franchise. And part of me is like, yeah, but I'm also the guy who just doesn't like exorcism, paranormal, demonic possession movies. Like, I could do without it. But there was a part of me that's like, I was hoping this Exorcist series was gonna change my mind on all that it was gonna be awesome and they would have a cool trilogy. After what they just did in the last movie, I don't know what you could do. And I doubt the public would even be excited for it. You'd have to go really crazy and out there. And knowing the budget Blumhouse has for these movies, I don't know if the next person is going to be any better. But that's what's happening right now with the Exorcist franchise. At least Blumhouse is trying to make some sort of change. How do you guys feel about the Exorcist Deceiver losing its director? Okay, now getting away from horror movie talk, let's talk about some other interesting movie news that's been going on in the sphere, starting with Star Trek. We got here revealed by the Hollywood Reporter that a new Star Trek movie is in the works at Paramount from Andor director. The only details we have about this new Star Trek movie is that it's taking place decades before the 2009 J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie, and it'll kind of work as an origin for Star Trek. Now, I'm not even going to pretend here, not big of a Star Trek guy. I'm glad if you guys enjoy it. I did like the live action movies. I thought they were fun. And we had been hearing for the longest time they were trying to do some sort of prequel, specifically because they had Chris Hemsworth at the beginning of the 2009 one before he's as famous as he is now. So it's like, oh, if we had Chris Hemsworth in Star Trek, let's bring him back. But it looks like that might not be part of the plan anymore. I'm like, yeah, sure, it could work. The part here, though, where they do mention that the Andor director is attached, that seems like good news, because although I haven't seen Andor for myself, because like I said, casual Star Wars guy, very casual Star Trek guy, from what I do hear, Star Wars fans seem to really love Andor, and that takes kind of like a grounded, serious approach to Star Wars, so maybe that's what they want to do over here. Could be cool, could not be. Throw it off to you, Star Trek fans. Are you excited about this? I'll see how that first trailer goes, in my opinion. Moving on here to some superhero talk. We had Deadline kind of reveal 3 main actresses that look to be our new Supergirl. The article says here, Supergirl, Millie Alcock, Emilia Jones, and Meg Donnelly among those in the mix to screen test for the role. So it looks like these 3 actresses are the front runners to get the Supergirl role, and they very much look like traditional Supergirl, and I guess that's kind of what we expected them to do here. Now, James Gunn did respond to this, because he responds to a lot of stuff, where he said, it's difficult to debunk stories that are fake, but with some element of truth. Either I have to point out what's fake and what's true and give away a bunch of stuff I didn't want to, or I just say the whole thing is fake and get accused of dishonesty down the line when the one true part comes out. Anyway, there's a couple of those stories around recently. To me, though, that sounds like he already has Supergirl cast. He knows which of these 3 actresses are gonna be playing Supergirl, because he said, yeah, there's truth to it, one of those did, and they got the job. Fans were quick to notice that like Meg Donnelly was the only actress out of all of these that was like liking posts about her being Supergirl, and unless you want to be embarrassed later, I don't see why you wouldn't be liking those unless you already got the job. James Gunn also said a couple weeks back that there would be another DCU project that would go into production this year other than Superman Legacy, and if he's casting for Supergirl right now and doing that, it looks like Supergirl is the next movie up on the roster. And after having read Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, I'm excited for that story. There's a lot of potential for that to be really cool. And I never really thought I'd be interested in a Supergirl film. This movie could be badass. But your guys' thoughts on the Supergirl casting and James Gunn's response. That brings us then to talk about Pedro Pascal and him looking more and more likely like ending up as our Reed Richards. So as you guys know, for a couple of weeks or heck maybe even a month now, it's been rumored that Pedro Pascal is the finalist to play Reed Richards in MCU's Fantastic Four. But fans were skeptical about it because we have said that about like 10 other guys the past year or two. But now, as we're inching closer to the Fantastic Four most likely filming this year, they have to announce this cast sometime soon. And a report came out that said that Pedro Pascal had to drop out of a horror movie he was doing this year called Weapons from Barbarian director, which that kind of sucks. I like horror movies. Pedro Pascal in them would have been nice. And the reasoning was due to his busy schedule, most likely him making room to be able to film the Fantastic Four movie that is set to start around the time of this horror movie. And man, that makes Pedro Pascal one busy dude, because they're gearing up to start filming The Last of Us Season 2, and he's definitely gonna have some scenes to film for that. And then they just announced the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, but then you also gotta think most of the time in that movie he's wearing a mask. It could be a double and he just shows up for the 2 or 3 scenes where he takes off his helmet. It's looking more and more likely like Pedro Pascal is Reed Richards, and look, I've said it, I'm fine with it. I like him, I could see it. He was not my top choice, and I definitely wasn't like jumping up and down when it was announced, but I'm open to it, and I'm sure he could pull it off. I've seen a lot of people on the internet go, I just don't like this. I don't see it. I like Pedro Pascal, but I just don't see him as Reed. And I get you. I'm actually just more curious what they're doing with this movie, because, you know, Marvel projects have been up and down lately, and I feel like there's a lot of pressure to get the Fantastic Four right, but I just have no idea what they're doing with the story, whether it is going to be taking place in the past, like in the 60s or 50s, like we've been hearing. There's even rumors that it might take place on an entirely different Earth, not in the MCU, but through Secret Wars and all that, it'll eventually connect. Pedro Pascal making room in his schedule so that he can play Reed Richards. You like that? You don't like that? Or you still think we're going to get somebody else as Reed? But that is all movie news we currently have going on right now, guys. I want to thank so much for taking time out of your day to watch me talk some movie news. Don't be forgetting to hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.